What's up, everybody? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. My name's Andy Herman. You can always follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Always appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to join me here on YouTube. Going to be going over a couple different things today. One, what happened in Week 9 and how it really benefited the Packers. And then also finished up my offensive grades from Week 9 against the 49ers. So I'll be going over my best and worst graded players from that game as I usually do as well. So those are going to be my main two topics today. Let's jump right in and get started. Let's start off with what happened in Week 9. If you listened yesterday, I kind of went through some of the things that could potentially go well for Green Bay this week. Well, it all came to fruition. Everything came up aces for the Packers. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, you want the Packers to take care of business, really win the games that gets them the number one seed, but you don't always mind a little help along the way. And seeing Seattle and Tampa Bay both lose their games, both relatively handily at the hands of the Buffalo Bills and the New Orleans Saints, certainly was at least somewhat encouraging to see. That really makes it for a crowded conference at the top. You have three teams at 6-2, including the Packers, the Seahawks, and the Saints. You've got the 6-3 Buccaneers, and then you've got the Cardinals and the Rams at 5-3. Cardinals also losing to the Miami Dolphins. Of course, the Packers beat the Niners on Thursday, so that hurt the Niners. The Rams had the bye. The Bears lose as well. So just everything kind of came up aces for the Packers. And as we start looking ahead to what this may mean, a lot of different scenarios come into mind. First of all, let's start with what's most important, always first and foremost. That's the NFC North. And there were a few weeks where it looked like maybe the Chicago Bears were going to be contenders in the NFC North, and maybe they had the defense that was going to be able to ground some teams, and maybe with Nick Foles they could follow that Philadelphia Eagles formula from a couple years back, not necessarily to win a Super Bowl. I don't think anyone was really thinking that, but maybe to be able to play spoiler and win maybe a playoff game, get in the playoffs, things like that, maybe even compete for the NFC North. That certainly does not look like it's the case any longer, and I feel very confident 8 games in for the Packers, saying that the Packers are easily the cream of the crop in the NFC North. The Lions lose again. The Vikings win back-to-back games, and Dalvin Cook's just been on absolute fire, but to me, they are not a contender because of how many games that they lost. They're really going to be against the 8 ball just to kind of get back in the thick of things. They're certainly going to have some tough games on their schedule remaining as well. So they're not in the thick of things. The Bears now losing, I think, 3 of 4. Their offense is just kind of completely screeched to a halt. It wasn't exactly clicking on all cylinders to begin with. They made the quarterback change, got a little bit of early returns from Nick Foles, but that's all gone out the window. So this is the Green Bay Packers division to lose. I don't think I'm shocking anyone by saying that. And when you think of the NFC East and how bad that division is, that means the winner of the NFC North at worst should be the 3 seed going into the playoffs. And now as you start looking at some of these potential tiebreakers, well, the Buccaneers who would have that tiebreaker against the Packers, they lose to the Saints, who the Packers have the tiebreaker against, the Packers beating the Saints earlier this season. So that Sunday Night Football result was a really key result for the Packers, and it could be very instrumental in them maybe getting that 1 or 2 seed down the road instead of a 3 seed because of the Bucs' big loss at the hands of the Saints on Sunday Night Football. And then you go out to the NFC West, and I've said all along, I don't expect the NFC West winner to be the 1 seed because I just think this division is way too talented. When your worst division, and I know they're insanely beat up right now, but when your worst team in the division is the San Francisco 49ers, I just think that is way too tough of a division, and some of those teams are going to steal wins from the top teams. And I think with the Rams, the 49ers, and the Cardinals and the Seahawks, you're going to just amass losses throughout the course of the season. Really difficult schedule. So I think you're going to see those teams start to fall back just because they're all playing each other week after week after week after week. In the NFC South, Bucs and Saints, how do they end up? And again, the fact that the Buccaneers took on another loss and then that the Saints move up to number 1, the fact that Green Bay has that tiebreaker, that could be huge down the road. It's not out of the question that this could very much come down to Packers and Saints at the end, especially based on how the Saints looked on Sunday Night Football. And if that's the case, Green Bay winning that game, forcing Drew Brees to throw the ball in negative 10-degree weather in January could legitimately be the difference between the Packers or the Saints representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So a lot of interesting results. I think my overall takeaway, and you always know this to be the case anyway, but my overarching takeaway from Week 9 is that the NFL is really difficult to navigate week by week. You had a Chiefs team that just about lost to the Carolina Panthers, easily could have lost that game. You had a Pittsburgh Steelers, an undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers team that very easily could have lost and almost lost to the Dallas Cowboys with their basically fourth quarterback on the season and Garrett Gilbert taking the reins for the Cowboys. So this is a very tough league to navigate. The Buccaneers, who destroyed the Packers just a few weeks back, get destroyed by the Saints. The Packers beat the Saints earlier this season in New Orleans. So you get kind of this one team's better than, or A is better than B, B is better than C, C is better than A, and you just kind of get this circle that goes round and round. And it just goes to show, I think you've got a good 15 teams in the NFL right now that are really good football teams. And I think even the next maybe like 10 or so are going to give you a really tough time, and it's not going to be an easy victory. I think the Green Bay found that out against Minnesota. Is Minnesota one of the best teams this season? No. If you don't come with your A game, can they still kick you in the mouth? They can, and I think there's a lot of teams like that if you're not ready to go, and there's a lot of extenuating circumstances this year. You've got positive COVID tests. You've had an election. You've got people going in and out. You had the less practice time. You've got everything going on this year. And I do think that if you take your eye off the ball a little bit, you don't have that, raucous home field advantage that maybe helps you in other seasons. And it's easier for road teams to come in and potentially get those wins. So I just think there's a lot of parity in the league. I think the other thing is that I've seen weaknesses in all of these teams. The Chiefs have shown significant weaknesses this year. They haven't been quite as high-powered on offense as I think people expected, even though they're number one in offense, I'm pretty sure, still up until this point, and are still very explosive. But teams have showed that you can at least slow them down a little bit, and their defense still shows holes. Tampa Bay was a major wake-up call against New Orleans today. We've seen the Saints have weaknesses. The Seahawks have major weaknesses on defense, which the Buffalo Bills exploited in great fashion on Sunday. So there's a lot of really good teams. I don't know that we have a true great team this season, although, again, kudos to the Steelers for being undefeated up until this point. But I think it's going to be a really interesting and really exciting end of the season. And I think those 14 playoff teams that get in, I think it's going to be a real fight come playoff time as to which teams are getting in week by week, because I think these are very closely packed teams towards the top of the NFL. So those are my main takeaways. One other really quick one. Kudos to Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins, because you go back a season ago, the trades that they made to basically completely gut their team, I didn't expect them to get any wins a season ago. If you would have told me they were an 0-16 team, I would have believed you wholeheartedly. I think they won 5 games a season ago. Since going 0-7, they are now 10-7 in their last 17 games. Now win again against the Cardinals after beating the Rams last week. They're on quite the winning streak. They've got a young, talented quarterback, really a defense that is exceeding all expectations. Brian Flores is a hell of a football coach. They've got a ton of draft capital coming up, including a bunch of picks from the Houston Texans as well. So they are loaded up, and I'm really excited to see where that franchise is headed as well. And kudos to them for really getting the ship righted well before I think any of us expected them to. They've really been one of the real surprises so far on this season. All right, let me quickly go over my top 3 and bottom 3 grades from the offensive side of the ball against the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think the top 2 are going to surprise you. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Number 2, Devontae Adams. And I really don't even think I need to break it down for you. I think you saw all of it with your own 2 eyes. There isn't anything that I'm going to tell you that jumped off the page that you didn't see on your own on Thursday Night Football. So I'll go right to number 3, and that's Corey Linsley. Again, every single week, he's basically been on my top 3 list, and he's one of my real MVPs so far this season. When you think about all the different players that have played at left tackle, left guard, right tackle, players playing different positions, even within the same game. Lane Taylor out for the year, Bakhtiari missing time, Billy Turner literally playing everywhere and also missing time to begin the season. Like, the amount of players that have played all throughout that line, the one constant has been Corey Linsley in the middle, the quarterback of that offensive line, getting everyone on the same page regardless of where they're lined up. I think he's had a tremendous year. Even if you take all that aside, he's my highest graded player on the team this year besides Aaron Rodgers. He's been off to a tremendous start through the first 8 games of the season, deserves whatever huge contract he gets, whether it's with Green Bay or another team going into next season. And again, it is really one of my MVPs on this season so far. Bottom 3 graded players from this game. Number 1, Lucas Patrick, a player who I have been so impressed with this season. Thought he struggled against San Francisco in the interior of their defense. Nothing too bad, but definitely just didn't have the run blocking. I think if you look at this performance overall, I don't think the run blocking was quite up to par. I think they pass protected very well, but the run blocking wasn't always there. If you look at a lot of Aaron Jones and Tyler Ervin's yards, it's usually having to avoid a first tackle or somebody that kind of clogged the first hole. I just don't think we saw a lot of that same movement along the offensive line as we had in earlier games this year, but overall I thought Lucas Patrick was my lowest graded. Jay Sternberger was second on that list. Just didn't do much, had 1 reception, struggled in blocking. You'll see him whiff a block from time to time. Wasn't an egregiously bad grade by any stretch of the imagination. And then number 3, John Lovett. Let's just say putting him at running back for those last 3 plays, I know it didn't matter, but that is not meant to be his position. Also missed a block earlier in the game as well. So top 3, Rodgers, Adams, and Linsley. Bottom 3, Lucas Patrick, Jay Sternberger, and John Lovett. That's going to do it for me. Make sure to check out today's Pack-A-Day podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Myself, Perry Goldstein, and Alex Strauff go over kind of the mid-season review, how the Packers have played through the first 8 games, kind of our big takeaways, our MVPs, our biggest disappointments. Also breaking down some of this week's games and taking a quick look ahead as well to the Packers and Jaguars this upcoming Sunday. Make sure to follow along tomorrow. If you haven't subscribed yet to the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube, please make sure to do so. I'll be back tomorrow with an all new episode. And until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.